most of my career for Fairmont Hotels, which was originally Canadian Pacific, but we bought Fairmont and we took the name because nobody likes Canadian Pacific. It's not a real brand. And I worked all over North America, but mostly in Canada, and also in San Francisco. And I worked a variety of jobs in service, rooms, and food and beverage to begin with. A million books in the world on accounting, but there are no books on financial leadership. Go look for them, there are none. So my book is completely different, and it's really geared towards helping operational people grow their careers, grow their influence, grow their success. The same with teams inside of hotels so that they can operate financially, become financial leaders. Training, and to be continually training. And we have standards, we should have standards for how we utilize something like a reservation system or a PMS. But as you know, and as I know, like those are all over the place depending on how good the team is and how well funded their operation is. Technology has a lot to do with how all that happens in the background and whatever, but it's her that's going to make the difference from my experience. So I would design a hotel around the idea of service, of providing great experiences for guests.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another exciting episode of our podcast, Reshape Hospitality with Tech. I'm your host, Maria, and I'm joined by my co host, Kazim. In today's episode, we have a guest who is an experienced hospitality expert, an author, and has achieved remarkable success with his financial leadership skills. His name is David Lund. Welcome, David, to the show, and thanks for joining here.
Thank you both. Nice to be here.
David, your journey in financial leadership as a financial coach has been remarkable. Can you tell our audience about yourself, share your career journey, and when did you realize your passion for the hospitality industry?
Yeah, so I'll start with the last question. I grew up in a small resort town in Atlantic Canada, and I literally grew up in the shadow of famous summer resort. And in high school, I was actually dating the general manager's daughter, if you can believe it. And lo and behold, I end up getting a job in the bar serving drinks. That was my first job. I just turned 19 and I was legal age, and that was my first summer. And that was about 40 some years ago now. But needless to say, the general manager's daughter and I parted company, but I didn't part company with the hotel business. I stuck with it. And I worked most of my career for Fairmont Hotels, which was originally Canadian Pacific, but we bought Fairmont and we took the name because nobody likes Canadian Pacific. It's not a real brand. And I worked all over North America, but mostly in Canada, and also in San Francisco. And I worked a variety of jobs in service, rooms, and food and beverage to begin with. But then there was a downturn in the economy, and someone said, you're going to get laid off. Or there's a job in accounting. What do you want to do? And then I was like, accounting? I don't want to work in accounting. But this person that I had a lot of respect for said, you should check it out. It's a great opportunity. And I did. And I listened to him. And that's when my career really took off. And a few short years later, I was the director of finance for a hotel, and then a regional controller, corporate director. I was a hotel manager for a while. I went back to the dark side, to the service side, but I decided that my home really was in finance and accounting. And a few years later, I developed a workshop inside one of my hotels to try and solve one of my biggest problems, which is getting the other managers to do their forecasts and hand in their accruals and all this stuff. And it really took off. It really was an eye-opener. People wanted to learn about the numbers. They just didn't have a good way to do it. So that's really where my financial leadership business was born, out of that workshop.
As you have over 30 years of experience working with top international brands, so what's your secret to success?
I think the secret for success is the hotel is still a business where you can start out washing dishes or making beds or peeling potatoes or mowing the lawn or whatever, and you can rise to the top as long as you're willing to continually learn and be of service. Our business is really about people. It's about helping people, helping your customers, helping your internal customers. And for me, my secret really was that I'm not a real accountant. So I know a lot of people that are real accountants and they're real serious and they're not really service focused at all, most of them. So I was different, and that was really what set me apart and really helped my career grow. Was I knew how to look after people and how to interact with the operations people and explain things to them that they could understand. Yeah, I think that's really the secret is looking after people, being of service. Um, and again, for a lot of people in our industry, that makes perfect sense because that's what they do. But when you get into the administrative parts of things, the service doesn't always stick with it. Um, but I would say that that would be, one of the things that I really excelled at was having people want to come to my office to talk about their departmental finances and their numbers and how they could improve those. Because people see that, it's the ticket to the executive office. If you want to be popular and you want to get ahead in your hotel and hospitality in general, you've got to know your numbers. You get to a certain point where, guest service and the colleague engagement are obviously very important and have to be cemented in place. But if you want to excel, the owner wants to talk about the money, not about the JD Power scores or not about the service index scores or any of those things. They want to talk about money. How much money are you going to make me next quarter, next month? Are we going to make our budget? What are we going to do to improve? That's really the currency of advancement, is understanding the numbers in hospitality. And for me, that was something I really excelled at because I really didn't like the accounting part of it. I liked the dealing with other managers and dealing with owners and explaining to them how we could achieve better results.
Considering your experiences, what made you decide to become an author and write books, articles, blogs on hotel finance? Can you tell us about that?
Well, I left my day job about 11 years ago, and I started my own business, coaching business. Um, and the first couple of years, things weren't going very well. And I actually hired a lady who's the expert of experts to help me create a brand because it was people were confused about what I was doing. So she helped me create the name, the Hotel Financial Coach, and she helped me build a website and create logos and stuff like that. But one of the things she said you need to do, David, is you need to create something to give away. And we'll call it the 7 secrets to creating a, and she said, you fill in the rest, David. And I said, well, it's going to be creating a financially engaged leadership team in your hotel. She says, that's too long. I said, well, I don't care. I'm going to use it. So I had to write a guidebook, 10,000 words. And when I did that, I realized I had a lot to say about finances and how we administer them, especially in the hotels, and why so many people are afraid of the numbers and why they find it confusing, because really it's not confusing. It's quite straightforward. And if I can understand it, if I can figure it out, then I think everybody else should be able to too. So I wanted to start a business around that and create workshops and coaching, speaking. And one thing led to another with this guidebook. I started writing a weekly blog and I started publishing it. I started putting up my own mail list. Before I knew it, I had, 100 weeks of blogs. And I thought, well, I could make a book out of these blogs. And I tried to get it published, and I tried for 6 years to get it published. And finally I did. Came through COVID and everything. And it's a natural extension of what I do. And I have 2 more books ready to go. And I'm going to be talking with my publisher later this month, and hopefully he will agree to publish the next one. So, the author really came out of the need to make the business work. I was not desperate, but I was committed to making my business work, and I had to do this in order to complete the marketing piece. So I was like, whoa, I can do this. So I did more and more of it, and I still produce a weekly blog or video. I've been doing so now for 8 years.
Let's talk about your new book, The
Yes,
Prosperous Hotelier, that just came out. Would you explain
yes.
to us why this book is important, what your approach was for writing this book, and why hotel leaders at all levels should buy it? Would love to know about it.
Yeah. So why it's important is because it's a book that's written for non-financial people. In other words, it's not written for accountants. It's written for operational people. It's written for hoteliers. And again, I come at the concepts in the book and the leadership pieces in the book and the ways to organize yourself as a leader in the book from a real practical point of view. I don't call it accounting. I call it business thinking. And you don't need accounting skills to be a financial leader inside of hospitality. You simply need to understand you're running a business, you're running a department. You've got to be able to manage the revenues. You got to be able to manage the payroll and manage the expenses. And we have people to do the accounting. We have people to do the heavy lifting. So the book is really written with that as the baseline of the approach. And there's a million books in the world on accounting, but there are no books on financial leadership. Go look for them. There are none. So my book is completely different, and it's really geared towards helping operational people grow their careers, grow their influence, grow their success. The same with teams inside of hotels so that they can operate financially, become financial leaders. And again, that's really what people in our industry want, is they want this knowledge. They want to have their seat at the captain's table. And the way to do that is to be able to talk to your boss about the numbers.
Earlier, you mentioned about the Hotel Financial Co. So, could you talk more about, as you are self-employed, tell us what kind of services do you offer to hoteliers that will help them in managing their hotels?
Yeah. So the number one service I offer is one-on-one coaching. So let's imagine that you're the director of sales and someone's tapped you on the shoulder and said, Maria, you'd be a great director of ops. You could be a GM one day. And Maria's going, the one thing I really need help with is the numbers. Call David. David has a 3-month program. He'll work with you every week and he'll teach you what you need to know. And again, in a way that you can understand it. It's not mumbo jumbo accounting. It's things that are explained so that you get it from an operational point of view. And then, the other service that I offer is I offer team workshops. So let's imagine you're the GM of a hotel and you want to bring me in to work with your 30 department managers and assistants in your hotel. I do workshops where I really teach the same material that I do on the one-on-one, but it's in a workshop format, and the participants actually have to work. They have to come to the front of the room and they have to tell us what they think about this or that and work together as a pair and come back and tell us your approach to solving this problem. But again, it's fun. It makes the numbers fun. You could also hire me if you were the GM or the thought leader in the company. You could bring me in to speak at your leadership meeting. I talk about financial leadership all the time, why it's important and how to get people engaged around the numbers so that we can have teams that are performing at a higher level, get them excited about the numbers. Because naturally, people think the numbers are somebody else's deal, right? The controller's deal, the director of finance, the director of sales, the GM, they deal with the numbers. I don't want to deal with that. But when you show people that the numbers are the way to get ahead in their career, they're all for it. They want to get involved. So those are the 3 main services. I also have a full-blown internal control review program and hotel accounting policy manual that I sell, that you can buy a license and I will give you that manual so you can use it in your hotel to improve the internal controls and improve the profitability. I also have a video course that you can purchase online. So if you want to do it yourself, you can do that. I also have a YouTube page with over 300 videos. You can go watch all those for free. And you can go to my website and I have those 8 years worth of blogs and videos on there as well. So there's a whole wealth of information where you can self-teach yourself. And I also do consulting. I help hotels with budgets and pro formas and stuff like that. So anything that you want help with the numbers, I'm the guy to talk to.
You have been training hotel manager in financial leadership for years, right? And
Yes.
if I will ask you, what training or workshop do you think hotels should invest in for their staff to deliver the best service to guests? So, in your opinion, which area should be focused on, either on customer service or specific department operations such as front desk, housekeeping, and management?
I mean, the thing about the hotel world is that we're always training. We have to train people on service. We have to train people on engagement. We have to train people on safety. We have to train people on communication. And the numbers is just another part of what we do. So I worked for a great company that one of the hallmarks of their whole philosophy was we never stop learning. We're always doing training. We're always doing workshops. We're always doing courses. We're always doing one-on-ones. We're always doing something to advance our leadership. And that's how people get interested in staying in hospitality, because they see that somebody is investing in them. The companies that don't invest in people anymore, they don't have anybody to work for them because nobody wants to work this hard and not get ahead. So, having the philosophy that we're going to invest in our leaders and our employees, and show them that this place called hospitality is a great place for a career. We're going to have you working really hard, but at the end of the day, it's very rewarding. And again, it's still the same kind of business. You can start out washing dishes, and one day you can be running the place if you're willing to work hard enough. So I think that training on every single discipline is what's necessary. The finances is probably one of the newer things because, in my career, nobody ever trained us on the numbers. It wasn't until I created the workshop that whole idea was possible. So I certainly did a lot of other training, but the numbers piece I think is the most important for a certain group of people with a particular focus. So the department heads, the assistants, the executives, they all need to understand how the numbers work and how they can work together to get their leaders to be more engaged with the numbers. Because if you're engaged with the numbers and you're running the front office or the housekeeping department, you're going to do a better job managing your budget and you're going to deliver superior results. It's that simple. If you don't know anything about it and you're just fumbling along doing what the last person did and hope that nobody asks you any tough questions, you're not going to be very successful. So we need to train people. And the financial piece is what I train people on.
Another thing, David, I would like to ask here, thing has been changed after COVID. And if we talk about hotel industry trends, you have also seen that the industry is dynamic with frequently changing in terms of customer preference. So what do you say about the key trends you see in the hotel industry for the coming years that hoteliers should be aware of in attracting more guests in their hotels, streamline operations, and of course, in increasing revenue?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges we have is to have technology on call it a solid platform. And the problem that our industry faces is very different than, say, the airline industry. Because if you're United Airlines, you're going to invest in your reservation system and your guest ticketing system. There's one person making the decision for United at the end of the day. It's the chairman, and he owns the leases for all the planes and he owns his routes. But in the hotel business, it's very different because we have franchised hotels, we have management companies, we have owners, we have owner operators, we have all these different business models. So to find the people that are going to invest the right amount of dollars into technology, whether it's guest technology or financial reporting technology or reservation systems, we're all over the place because in every different business model, there's a different person who's making the decision. And in some cases, like for instance, you take say Choice Hotels, they have 6,000 hotels. They have 6,000 owners. So if I'm going to say we're going to put in a new property management system, how am I supposed to get that delivered over 6,000 franchised hotels? It's impossible. So we have a real challenge in our industry with the ownership model. And I think to overcome that, what we've got to be able to do is get enough hoteliers together and figure out what is the best platform to move forward with, because we have all these technologies and all these different companies. Everybody uses something different. If you go underneath the hood in a full service hotel, there's probably up to 100 different systems that are all wired together and interfaced and jury rigged. And it's a really challenging environment to move forward. And again, it's because our ownership platforms are all so different in all the different hotels. So to overcome that, we've got to have a better effort at figuring out what's the best mousetrap we can build.
In today's digital age, do you think social media has changed customer behavior? Are they more likely to reserve a hotel with positive reviews online, and does it this contribute to hotel success as well? What's your take on this?
Definitely. I mean, social media today is where people get their impressions of just about everything, right? Everything from politics to food to hotels, things like that. And definitely having a good social media presence is important. And then also too, like you say, with reservation systems, it's okay. How are we utilizing that system, and how does the guest utilize that system? And if you go online now and book three different hotels in the same country because you're going there for a week, you're going to have to figure out three different systems because they're all different. And that's where like the Expedias of the world have a leg up on us hoteliers because they have one system and it looks the same. I can go and see all the hotels in there. But in the back of my mind as a hotelier, I'm going, well, that's a problem for me because I'm not the hotel's customer. I'm now Expedia's customer. I don't want to book that way necessarily. But for most of the public, they don't know that. So I think we have to think more like that and create some kind of a environment where if I'm booking three different experiences and I don't want to go to Expedia and I want to go to the property websites, that they're somehow the same. The airlines, again, have it quite close. Like if you go to Delta or if you go to United and you book a reservation, it's all pretty much the same, different colors and boxes or whatever, but it's all pretty much the same. With hotels, it's not. It's a far cry from the same. So I think we've got to get together and figure it out.
David, we talk about technology a lot on our podcast. And now, as you mentioned earlier, that we have these different ownership models across the hospitality industry. In fact, I was reading an article about you that said why technology has the hotel business bootstrapped. So I find that take very interesting. So given the fact that hospitality industry is very slow in implementing any new changes, and so in the near future we can't see this ownership model quickly changing. So what can hotel industry do in today in current system so that they can overcome some of these challenges and utilize technology to the fullest?
Yeah, well, in one sense, it's I'm going to be repeating myself, but we need to get a group of people together from all of the different types of hotel companies and ownership structures and define what our platforms should look and feel like. And if we could all agree that this is the one reservation system that everybody would use, the world would be so much better and so much cleaner and so much easier. But I think the reality of that happening is probably no. That would take some kind of a miracle of epic proportions. So in the meantime, what could we do? Well, I think the brands that have the most at stake and that want to really improve their platforms should get together and create a standard that other people are going to see is so superior that they're going to want to adopt it. They're going to want to follow it. That's the only way to move forward because, again, if you're running an airline company, you have the whole map. You can do everything. But if you're running a hotel company and it's let's say it's like Marriott, where we own some properties, we manage some properties, and most of them are franchised. How are you going to get the same platform into all of those businesses? I mean, there's it's no big surprise why a big hotel company is still using a DOS PMS program, right? Come on. And the reason why they are using it is because they can't figure out how to replace it and get everybody to pay for it at the same time because they're all different models. So that's where the bootstrapping comes in. But we've got to be able to step away from that and go, okay, maybe we charge ourselves a small licensing fee and we form a group of hotel companies, and this licensing fee goes towards designing this system that we're all going to be utilizing in 5 or 10 years so that we can then move forward. Because again, if we continue doing our own thing and everybody's doing their own thing, we're all using different vendors, different combinations of vendors, we're going to be stuck being bootstrapped with all this technology. And it gets harder and harder every year to teach people how to use it all. So I think that, that's our number one biggest challenge and also opportunity is how can we get onto a platform where things aren't so despondent from one brand to the next and one hotel to the next.
Do you think this is also a problem that even if they manage to invest a sizable amount on the technology, I mean, they can uh, buy the new technologies, but the staff don't know how to properly use the technology to fully utilize its benefits?
Yeah, well, then that gets back to to training and to be continually training. And we have standards. We should have standards for how we utilize something like a reservation system or a PMS. But as you know, and as I know, like those are all over the place, depending on how good the team is and how well funded their operation is. And you know what's the first thing that hoteliers are going to or owners are going to cut when there's a bit of a downturn in the economy? They're going to cut training, which is the wrong thing to do. They should actually lean into doing more training when it's quiet, when the customers aren't there, because the customers are going to come back. COVID proved that to us, and we made such a big mistake during COVID by furloughing half of our leaders, and they never came back, because who wants to work for a company that would do that to them? And when we don't invest in people, that's exactly the same thing. People say to themselves, I'm not going to work and work so hard for this company because they're not doing anything for me. So we can't be short-sighted like that. And I know a lot of owners are. They're very short-sighted. And a lot of owners need to make numbers. They need to make quarterly results. They've got a share price. They've got all these things going on. Well, that doesn't fit very well in the service model and the hotel business. Our hotel business is a long-term view of things, not a short-term view. Now, if you have a short-term need, then I think you need to figure out how to solve that, and it doesn't affect the hotel so much. It doesn't affect the leaders, doesn't affect the team and the colleagues, because that in itself is going to affect the service, and then it's going to impact your investment, your asset. So it's all connected. It all comes back to investing in people, investing in your leaders, investing in your staff, training them, and knowing that that's something you can never take your foot off the gas.
So, being a financial expert, I would like to ask, how do you see the situation of fintech in the hospitality industry? Because we see that people generally, they are moving more towards Apple Pay, Google Pay, or maybe peer-to-peer payment method like Venmo or Cash App. Do you think we can see these methods being prevalent payment methods in the hospitality industry in the near future?
Yeah, again, I think that we're very despondent. Everybody's doing different things. But when you look at credit cards as an example, like, to balance the credit cards at the hotel every day, you've got to balance the PMS to the terminal, and then balance the terminal to what ends up at the bank. And it's still a very big manual process at the end of the day to make sure it all balances. And then if you have a chargeback, oh my God, the whole world stops, right? And then you got to reset and you got to figure out what happened. And so I think, all of the technologies that I use personally myself, like Apple Pay or whatever, that's definitely what we should be making available for our guests. And more people will move in that direction. But, I was just in the grocery store this morning before I got stuck in traffic, and there was a gentleman in front of me who was, still paying with his cash. And so we've got to be able to accommodate all these different things inside of our hotels in order to meet what the public needs, because it's not going to change that fast, that much, so that, two or three things go away and we're left with just this one part. So we're going to have to continue to provide all kinds of different payment forms. In fintech, I think it's great, and it's definitely the way of the future. But again, it's sure going to be a long future in hospitality.
And also, I would like to ask, because these are the problems that have been prevalent in the industry for so long, and now everywhere we hear about is artificial intelligence and big data and things like that. So, do you think these can help with revenue management or operational management for the hotels?
Yeah, I think it can. It's like a tool. It's like when we first got spreadsheets. Like, I was able to do things a lot faster and a lot more accurately. But at the end of the day, I had to connect the dots inside of the spreadsheet to make it work. I had to understand what's going on. And I think that that's the real big advantage for AI is if I understand what's going on, I can ask AI the questions that will give me the information I need so that I can get my result faster and better. And I know for myself, like I use AI in my own personal business all the time, and I use it in my own personal life. I ask it all the craziest questions, and it comes back with some really great stuff. But I don't use that to make my final decision. I use that to help me figure out, okay, well, what's the best approach for me in this current situation? And I don't think we're ever going to have a situation, or at least not in my lifetime, anyways, where AI is running the hotel. Because it knows all the things to do. We still need a human, because every time we meet somebody at the desk and they have a problem, it's a little bit different, right? It's never exactly the same problem twice, unless they just want a key to the washroom. Okay, well, here's a key to the washroom. Off you go. But if they have a problem with their room or whatever, we got to personalize the service. AI is not going to do that. And I know I have a call next week with a guy in San Francisco, and he's telling me in this email that he wants to pick my brain because he wants to use AI to come up with this project where they're going to manage the hotel using AI. And I'm going, well, okay, that's great. If I need an answer to a question, this is so much better than Google, because it'll give you an answer rather than just a bunch of links. But at the end of the day, I have to interpret that answer, and then I have to talk to the guest and I make sure the guest is happy and they know what they're doing. So I think it's great, but it's just a tool that's going to help us do things more efficiently. It's never going to replace a person. If I don't have anybody at the front desk and I don't offer any service, and there's a terminal there where somebody can say, ask AI, what's a good restaurant around the corner or something like that. Sure, that's better than nothing, but that's not service. That's not really going to help our industry. What we've got to be is the industry where we've got all this stuff going on in the background, and we're training people and they're excellent, but we provide the best service, because that's what people will pay for. They'll pay for someone to talk to who's got a great recommendation for a restaurant because they were there last week, and they can talk about, the fresh foie gras or whatever it is that's on the menu that's so great. So my answer is, it's really important. We got to continue to, lean into it, but is it ever going to just run the hotel for us? Not in any hotel that I want to stay in.
That's an interesting take, because obviously this is a prevalent sentiment that the human touch is obviously necessary for the hospitality industry. But what we're seeing is that the newer generation, they have like the habit of, they would rather avoid face-to-face communication. They would rather text instead of call. So maybe they will prefer a hotel where they don't have to interact with people too much. So how can hospitality accommodate those people?
Well, I mean, that's real simple. Like, take a look at the vacation ownership model. I mean, there's no people involved, right? You get a code or you get something on your phone, and you find your way there with your maps and you check yourself in. I kind of like that sometimes. I don't want to wait in line. I don't want to talk to people. But I tell you, when I walk through the doors of a nice hotel and I see the nice people behind the front desk, and that's part of my experience. I want to interact. And I know exactly what you're saying about younger people. I've got 3 kids. They don't want to talk to people if they don't have to. But I think that in our business, just like a great restaurant, we have a great waiter. I mean, I'm there to help you have an experience. And our hotels, we need to set them up so that that's the focus. So that when people come to us, maybe they don't like to talk to people normally, but after they've talked to Maria over here, they're hooked. They love her. They're going to go back. Who wants to talk to this little thing when you can talk to Maria? She's really charming. She's wonderful. That's what's going to work.
We have been discussing about the problems that the hospitality is facing, with all these ownership models and everything. So what would be your suggestion to any, let's suppose, owner or developer who are building a new hotel? What should they consider while building a new hotel so that they can somewhat avoid these problems?
Good question. Building a new hotel. Well, someone once asked me, why, David? And this was the girlfriend's father, the general manager of the hotel. He says, David, why do people stay in hotels? And I'm going, well, great restaurants. Nope. Because of the architecture, because they're great, wonderful buildings. Nope. Oh, okay, it's the people, it's the service. He goes, nope. He says, people stay in hotels because we all need a place to sleep every day. So that's it. That's where we got to start and end with our whole idea of what we're going to create with our hotel. Is we want a great place where people can come and have a great night's sleep and have all the services and all the things that are going to be necessary to make that happen, so that it's smooth, it's seamless. And I think technology has a big part to play in it. But again, what's going to make it work are the people. And we've got to invest in those people. We've got to find the best people. And that has to be our model. Our model is not, Star Trek and technology running the hotel and push this button and push that button. That's what we do all day long for ourselves, for our job. When we have a weekend off or we have a week off or whatever, I don't want to do that. I want to relax. I want to enjoy, the company that I'm with. And I want to have that in an environment where the Marias of the world are serving me and looking after me, making me feel special. And again, technology has a lot to do with how all that happens in the background and whatever, but it's her that's going to make the difference for my experience. So I would design a hotel around the idea of service, of providing great experiences for guests, because when we put guests together with employees who are well-trained and motivated to service people, we create the opportunity to create a wonderful experience for that guest that they'll never forget. And that's what our business is all about.
You mentioned people who supported you in your writing career and helped you build your brand, Hotel Financial Coach. But I'm curious, when you were starting out your career in hospitality, were there other people who helped you in achieving your career goals, and why they are so valuable to you?
I have a couple of pages in my book where I thank some people that have really been impactful in my career. And there's been so many people that have helped me and helped me in so many different ways. And half the time people are helping you, you don't even realize it until years later that someone was there to give you the right advice or to give you the right motivation. But, in our business, having a mentor and having several mentors is so important. Because our business is tough. We work hard. We work a lot of hours. We work holidays. It can be in some ways kind of thankless. But if we surround ourselves with the right people in the right environment, we're going to get a lot more encouragement, and we're going to give a lot more encouragement. So creating that kind of an environment inside of your hotel, inside of your company, that's the glue that's going to hold everything together, because there will be another recession. There will be another COVID. There will be another disaster. And finding people and finding good people is always what's most important in hospitality. And having the technology to do all the things we need to do and to move forward, yes, but it's got to be people facing. It's got to be people first.
What's the future of financial statements inside of the hotel business?
Right now in our world, we're lucky. We have the Uniform System of Accounts for the Lodging Industry, which is a book. It's almost 100 years old. It's in its 12th edition. It's a guide that says basically how we put together the P&L and the balance sheet and cash flow statements and what goes where. It's really a great book because it's a guidebook. It tells us basically what our financial statements need to look like, so that as an industry, we're all doing things the same. But the very basis of those financial statements is what we call departmental profitability: rooms profit, F&B profit, gross operating income, GOP, overhead expenses, A&G, sales and marketing, maintenance. It's all laid out there, which is great. But I think the future, especially with technology and especially with AI, we want to get to a point where we can actually produce financial statements by market segment, so that we know how much our transient customers are making us, how much our group customers are making us, how much our corporate customers are making us. Because if I was running, like for instance, if I was running an automobile company, I'm going to have the trucks division. I'm going to have my SUVs. I'm going to have my sport utilities. I'm going to have that's an SUV. I'm going to have my sedans, and I'm going to know the profit on each one of those that I make. And I'm going to be able to promote them differently. I'm going to be able to manage their growth and their profitability differently. In hotel business right now, I can't do that. So I think our industry needs to move towards producing financial statements that are not only done by department the way we do them now, but with technology, we could produce a sister financial statement every single month that was by market segment. how much money are my different customers making me? And that's really going to help drive profitability, because if I'm a revenue manager and I can choose between a transient reservation and a group reservation, and I know the price, I can see the price, but what's the profit from each one of these customers? If I know that the group customer is actually a whole lot more profitable because they're going to bring me F&B and they're going to arrive at the same time, they're going to leave at the same time, they move around at the same time. That's so important, and I'm missing that information right now. I just, in my mind, I'm going, well, I think groups are more profitable, but it's got to be the right size, got to be the right pattern, whatever. But with technology, we could take it so much further. So I think that's something that's really exciting, and it's not a guest thing at all. The guest is never going to see the financial statement, but from the owner's point of view, and from the revenue manager's point of view, and from the total profit management of the entire business, understanding what our market segments are producing and what's producing in profit and costs is so important. And it's right there. We're so close to it.
You have shared a lot about your expertise. Many industry professionals are listening to this podcast. If you could share your one piece of advice for hoteliers, those are looking to improve their hotel finance and financial issues, so what advice would you suggest to them?
The first part is training. All of your managers need to be trained on financial leadership and trained on financial statements and what does all this information mean and how to use it to run your department more effectively, how to manage your payroll, how to manage your expenses, and if you have revenue, how to manage your revenue. They need to be trained. They're not going to show up in the hotel and know how to do that. Training them in a team setting is definitely the way to go. But beyond that, I really think that our business, we're kind of on the precipice. We're on the precipice of kind of a bit of a revolution. We've come through COVID. We've really had severe labor issues in our business. And the reason why we have so many labor issues is because people don't want to work in hospitality. And that's really not true. People do want to work in hospitality, but they want to work for someone who's going to invest in them. And that's the magic in our business, is we have that ability to attract people, because if they know that they're going to have a career that's going to be satisfying and that someone like Maria is going to invest in them and train them so that they can grow and prosper. Other industries can't do that. You can't do that in the insurance business. It doesn't work that way. But in the hotel business, it does, because that's the environment that we've had for, since the dawn of time. That's hospitality. So we got to remember that we have the biggest advantage in our industry when it comes to growing people and looking after people and developing people, because we've been doing it for centuries. So we just got to get back to what's really important and stop being so cheap when it comes to cutting expenses when things aren't so busy. Realize that that's a great time to turn around and invest in our people, train them so that when the customers come back, the business comes back, we're going to be that much more profitable. So that's my advice.
Let's talk about your personal interests. What activities keep you active and strong, and how do you enjoy your free time with your family?
Yeah, so I've got 3 kids that are all in their 30s. So they
Oh,
live all over North America. They're all doing really well. So they're not around very often. But when they are, I certainly enjoy them. But my wife and I, we love activities. We have a swimming pool in the back, so we swim a lot. She's a real swimmer. I'm getting more and more into it. We bike. I have 3 different bicycles. I have a fat bike, I have a mountain bike, and I have a gravel bike. So even at 4:30 today, my neighbor and I are going to go for about a 7-mile bike ride in the woods. So I like to do that. I have 2 dogs, so we walk a lot. I hike with the dogs almost every day, Monday to Friday, at least 3 or 4 miles sometimes. I really like to do that. And, I try and do 2 or 3 things every day from an exercise point of view: walking, cycling, swimming, something. I got to do 2 or 3 of those things every day just to stay kind of moving forward, because as we get older, it's harder and harder, right? So we have to work harder and harder. So that's what I like to do. I love to cook. I love wine. I love to travel. My wife and I are going to Switzerland next month for a week or 10 days. So we're really looking forward to that.
as you have said, you enjoy traveling with your wife and I would like to know, could you tell us some of your favorite luxury hotel experience?
Oh my gosh, that's an interesting question. So luxury hotel experiences. Well, I would have to say that the Fairmont in Sonoma, California, is a wonderful place to hang out. It's a smaller hotel. It's got a great vibe to it. It's in wine country. It's got a great pool. It's got great food and beverage. It's got an amazing like 5-star restaurant. And you always kind of feel like you're on your own little call it island when you're there, whatever. But it's easy to kind of get away from people and still feel like you're at a resort, but you don't feel like you're at a resort where there's all kinds of people tripping over you. So that's one of my favorite places. I really like Scottsdale as well, and again, I'm kind of partial to the Fairmont Hotel in Scottsdale, but it's a monster hotel. It's huge, but it's really well laid out. It's got like 5 different swimming pools and all kinds of restaurants, and it's a great environment. Um, what else do I can I put up there? One of my favorite hotels is the Hotel McDonald in Edmonton, actually. And it's a former CN hotel that's now a Fairmont hotel, and it's just so well put together. Um, there's a huge mural on the wall in the bar slash restaurant, which is all focused on Canadian Confederation when the country was born. So there's a lot of history there. So you really feel the history when you're in this hotel. It has a meeting room called the Wedgwood Room, and it's like blue Wedgwood. And blue Wedgwood was my mother's favorite thing. She collected it like you wouldn't believe. I've got a bunch of it myself, but it's just a really cool hotel, and it's kind of like not even that famous, but it's really well set up.
David, we are really grateful that you took the time to join our podcast. Thank you so much. It was great discuss about your career achievements, industry insights, and of course on your book too. You are a wonderful guest.
Well, thank you. It's been great to be here, but I've enjoyed
No,
talking
very,
with you guys. Let's do it again,
yeah, for
boys.
sure, David. It was
For
an
sure.
absolute pleasure having you on our podcast.
Okay, guys.
I hope you enjoyed watching today's episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more interviews with industry leaders. Follow us on our social media at Advanced Hospitality Technologies. See you with another guest. Till then, take care and have a great day.